The Navy SEAL stopped his truck in the middle of the snow-covered highway, his breath fogging the windshield as his instincts screamed that something was wrong. Through the swirling white storm, he saw them, 5 figures huddled together on the side of the road, barely moving, as if the cold itself had already begun to claim them. He stepped out, boots crunching against ice, and asked the question that would change every life standing there, including his own. "What's going on out here?" What he didn't know yet was that this frozen moment would force him to face a truth far more dangerous than any battlefield he had ever survived. The SEAL had faced enemy fire, ambushes, and near-death missions, but nothing prepared him for the sight of a little girl lifting her frostbitten face and whispering, "Please, don't leave us." The storm was merciless. Snow fell thick and heavy, erasing tire tracks almost as soon as they formed. Lieutenant Daniel Cross, retired Navy SEAL, scarred in body and soul, was driving through a remote mountain pass, heading toward a cabin he barely visited anymore. Silence was his refuge now. After 20 years of war, silence felt safer than people. That's when he saw them. A man kneeling in the snow, his shoulders shaking. A woman clutching a baby wrapped in a threadbare blanket. 2 children pressed against her sides, their shoes soaked through, their lips blue. They looked less like a family and more like a forgotten memory the world had abandoned. Daniel approached slowly, instincts sharp. He scanned for threats out of habit. There were none, only desperation. "What's going on out here?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. The man looked up, eyes hollow. "Truck broke down 10 miles back. Phone's dead. Been walking since dawn." Daniel glanced at the baby, barely breathing, skin pale. Hypothermia. Severe. Time was running out. "Why didn't you stay with the vehicle?" Daniel asked. The woman answered through chattering teeth. "The baby stopped crying. We were scared Her voice broke. "We thought moving might keep her alive." Daniel swallowed hard. He had carried wounded teammates through deserts and jungles, but this was different. There were no medevacs here. No backup. Just him. He ushered them into his truck, cranked the heat, wrapped them in spare thermal blankets. The children clung to his arms like he was the last solid thing in a world coming apart. As they drove, pieces of the story emerged. Job lost. Rent unpaid. Eviction. A cheap truck bought with borrowed money. A desperate attempt to reach a town where a distant cousin might help. Daniel said little, but something inside him cracked open with every mile. He remembered nights overseas when civilians were collateral damage, families frozen in fear while soldiers decided their fate in seconds. At the nearest clinic, the baby was rushed inside. The parents waited, shaking, not from cold now, but terror. Daniel sat across from them, hands clasped, feeling a weight he hadn't felt since the war, responsibility. When the doctor finally came out and said, "She'll live," the mother collapsed into tears. The father buried his face in his hands. Daniel stood there, silent, as something long buried inside him stirred awake. But this wasn't the end. Because when Daniel offered to help them get back on their feet, the father said something that stopped him cold. "We can't stay," the man whispered. "They're looking for us." Daniel thought the snowstorm was the danger, until he realized the real threat was already following them. That night, Daniel brought the family to his isolated cabin. It wasn't charity, it was instinct. The same instinct that once told him when to move, when to fight, when to protect. As the fire crackled, the truth came out. The father, Mark, had worked for a construction company that cut corners, illegal dumping, forged safety reports. When Mark refused to sign false documents, he was fired. When he threatened to report them, the threats began. Slashed tires. Anonymous calls. Men watching their apartment. The police? No proof. So they ran. Daniel listened quietly, his jaw tight. He knew this world. Not the snow-covered kind, the one where powerful people crush anyone who stands in their way. "You're safe here," Daniel said finally. And for the first time in years, he meant something beyond survival. The next days were tense. Daniel noticed tracks near the tree line. A black SUV once, parked too long on the road. His old skills snapped back into place like muscle memory. He made calls, old ones, quiet ones. What followed wasn't violence. It was exposure. Documents surfaced. Whistleblower protections activated. Federal investigators stepped in. The company collapsed under its own corruption. And just like that, the storm that chased the family melted away. Weeks later, Daniel stood outside a small rental house in town, watching the children play in the snow, laughing this time, not freezing. Mark had a new job. The baby was healthy, warm, alive. The mother hugged Daniel tightly. "You saved us." Daniel shook his head. "No," he said softly. "You survived. I just stopped long enough to notice." As he drove away, the road stretched ahead, quiet, white, endless. But for the first time since leaving the battlefield, Daniel didn't feel empty. He realized something powerful. Sometimes the bravest mission isn't fought with weapons. It's fought with compassion. And sometimes, all it takes to save a life is stopping in the snow and asking one simple question. "What's going on out here?"